all set?
I think so. I think so. Got our list of stuff here.
Yep.
What we want to talk about. You were asking what NFW was?
Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah.
NEW.
It's your handwriting, I guess.
There was never anybody so happy as when computers were invented because then I didn't have to write by hand anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
Welcome to the Scuttlebutt. I'm Rich.
And I'm Sandy, and you are once again sitting here having a little coffee with us at our kitchen table in the cabin on the trapline. So welcome, and glad you could be here.
It's November 12th, so the day after Remembrance Day. We're going to talk a lot about what we've been doing out here the last little while, getting our line set up and that, but I want to touch on Remembrance Day.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important because as we move forward, there seems to be less understanding of what Remembrance Day really means for a lot of people in our realm.
It's been forgotten.
Yeah.
It truly has been forgotten, and I don't understand it. I don't understand the political football part that it's become, where people today, the politicians and that are looking to say anything to shock, to get their minute or second in the newspaper or on the internet, and you know, when they pick on something like Remembrance Day, we've had people in our family serve.
Yes. We
have nobody currently serving, and right now, God bless all of you that have served, do serve, wherever you serve in the world. You have our gratitude. I was on my feed. Google has me somehow pigeonholed. I don't know how they did this.
Oh, jeez. I don't know how do they Google it?
But it has me pigeonholed, and anytime there's something that has a reference to a trapper in it, which, believe it or not, there's very few things that have a reference to a trapper in it. But they sent me in my newsfeed this week, and it was about a trapper, and it was in northern Alberta, and this was just before when Canada entered the First World War.
Yeah,
okay,
so this was an archived accounting.
Yes, it's like 1914 or something like that. The call went out, or 1911. No, I'm not sure. Anyway, the call went out that Canada had joined the Allies and the war, and that they needed men, and it gives you chills to read the examples of how people got from here in the north to go volunteer. Now, they're volunteers. This is not conscription. They're not being paid. They're volunteers. This one fella, a trapline, it's so weird how this was. So just north of us here, he got the call. I don't know how he got the call. You know, somebody passed it through, told him that they were calling for men, that Canada was going to war. And so he packed everything up, and he started walking. In those days, there were no roads.
Yeah. And
it took him 2 days to walk to the nearest train tracks. And he had missed the weekly train by a few hours. Yeah. So he turned and hung a left on it and headed south, walking towards Grand Prairie. And later the next week, when the train caught up to him, he got on it and he headed to Grand Prairie and on to Edmonton, where he could volunteer.
There's so many stories about people that, you know, unhooked the horse from the plow and got on the horse and headed to the nearest train station and
hugged their wives, kissed their kids goodbye, and it was a very moving. We can't honor them enough to have that sort of dedication. Your grandpa fought. Your grandpa fought in Vimy Ridge, and he was one of the Canadians that won the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
And came home.
Yeah. That doesn't happen. And you know what is amazing? Your grandpa was a prime example of it. Never said 2 words about the war after he came home. Never.
Actually, as kids, we were told never to ask.
Yeah. And today,
by my parents, let's say, like Granddad was never one to say, "Don't ask," but we were told, "Don't ask him about it. It's very painful."
Yeah, Granddad was a hard man, though.
Yeah,
there was a lot of hard men back then, and it was. You know, in today's world, a snowflake gets bruised if somebody wears a "Make America Great" hat or whatever, and they're all crying and they need the counseling and all that. These people saw hell. Yeah. These people saw hell. We have a member of our provincial government who refuses to wear a poppy. She disgusts me. She's a part of the socialist government that is running the province.
Currently running the government, hopefully not for much longer.
Briefly.
Yeah.
They got 5 months left. And, she says that the poppy is a symbol of, it glorifies war.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a worldwide symbol of respect and remembrance. And for one individual to characterize a respectful symbol as being promotion or warmongering is so removed from reality. It really, it's beyond words.
Especially in a world today, a world where symbols have never had so much meaning as they do now. The color of the rubber band you wear around your wrist, or the hashtag on Twitter or whatever, these are all so powerful, so moving, so me too, so all that stuff. And then something that really truly does mean something,
is minimized.
You've heard the saying that there are no atheists in a foxhole. Yeah, and I love that one. I really do. If you're ever doubting about God, just stand up in a foxhole.
Or imagine yourself there.
I wish I had a machine.
Oh.
I'd call it Rich's machine.
Really? What a shock.
It'd be Rich's attitude adjuster.
Oh, okay? I'm liking it better.
Yeah. Lots of patents. I want to make a little money on it, of course.
Of course.
Being a conservative. So,
it would be in high demand.
I would like to take like that woman. Yeah. And I would like to plop her into a foxhole next to your granddad, just as they're about ready to go over the top and up Vimy Ridge. Yeah. And then see what she thinks then about it.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is that none of these people today, so many of the youth in that have never struggled, have never seen the other side of the coin.
No.
They don't understand.
And in many cases, I mean, my grandfather is long gone, and even many of the World War II veterans are very aged people now. But a lot of our young people don't have anyone that they can talk to, or that they will talk to them, because many of them have been maligned as being part of the military and some sort of great warmongering conspiracy that goes on out in the world, and people are afraid to talk to people that have gone to war or protecting our freedoms on a daily basis, and it's really kind of sad.
True, and I mean, the other side of it is it's just how people evolve. I forget it. Mark Twain said, "If you're not a communist by the time you're 20, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative by the time you're 40, you have no brains."
Something like that. And I don't know who that's attributed to necessarily. But
I like Mark Twain. I blame him or give him credit for a lot of stuff.
There you go.
But the whole thing about that is that it's the way it is. Kids are a lot more tender-hearted, and they believe in everybody should play together well and all that.
Well, they're told that people should play nice together, right? Don't take somebody else's toy. Don't throw sand in their face. Those kinds of things. And it's all good words to live by. Heaven knows I don't want anybody throwing pens at me when I go to the bank tomorrow morning.
I love, though, some of our friends that their kids, they're 18 and they're just beaking at you. And when you might mention that you don't think the socialist program's right or whatever, and they beak at you. And then 4 or 5 years later, they're out on their own. They
buy a house.
Yeah, they buy a house. They're paying taxes. And then it's, hey, Sandi, I couldn't believe what you're talking about now, but now I understand.
Yeah, now I'm paying taxes, and I don't like where my tax dollars are going. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you know what? There are a lot of people that fought for the freedom for us to be able to do all of the things that we're doing. So thank you to all who have.
Thank you, God bless. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. You have our utmost grateful. Respect. Moving on.
Enough. We're going to have to move on, because this is the last of our old smoked coffee, because we've been out here for the long weekend, only packed enough coffee for a weekend. So we've been rationing, and this is the last of it.
I can't even threaten to send you home.
I know. Because you'd live out here without coffee.
Yeah, exactly. It ain't working, is it? Yeah. No. I tried that. And you're going to go home. Yeah. Not like you could find your way. You get lost on a snowmobile track, but I like to threaten every now and then.
Sure.
But we are out here setting up our line. Yeah. And I got a late start. Usually I am here the night before. November 1, as we've said, is the start of our musculid season, which is Wolverine and Fisher, Marten, Ermine,
Mink.
Weasel, and Mink. And so I'm usually out here the night before, and I get everything ready to go, and I'm gone.
He's gone at the crack of
before daylight. But it was probably the second or third before I got out here. Uh-huh. I was off helping our son on the house I'm building for him, and so I got here a little bit late, and we'd had this really, as we mentioned in other podcasts, we've had this really warm spell at the end of October. Well, that ended on the 1st.
It was like winter has arrived.
It started to snow and snow and snow and snow. We ended up we got worse here than we do back at home. And home is about 3 hours south of us.
Yeah.
But we've got about a foot of fluffy snow here. Well, the worst part about that is that we had no frost. So the roads weren't frozen or anything else. And worse though is the puddles. You know, the beaver dams, the lakes, and that. There's just that only ice that's on them is from that snow falling, and then it makes that really crappy white ice.
Yeah.
Well, whereas 2 or 3 inches of good clear ice will carry the Argo, 4 inches of crap won't. Right.
Right.
So I'm busting through everywhere, and when you get into the muskegs and the swamps and that, especially down south, you're breaking through just nonstop, and so that track is full of water all the time. Well, the day I got here, then it goes to minus 25 Celsius, which is, I don't know, about 10 below zero Fahrenheit. Fairly snapping.
Fairly snapping. It had warmed up a little bit by the time we got out here again on Friday night, but nevertheless, it still takes something to keep the cabin warm in terms of wood.
But I was out there. I'm breaking all this trail, so I'm going through all this fluff. Plus, I'm falling in the water net all the time. And the water now, those tracks on the Argo are they're solid. So you've the solid belt. So any water that lays inside of them actually travels on the tires and builds up on the hubs and that. Mm-hmm. The combination of the fluffy snow, the water, and the cold.
Yeah.
Now every bit of metal that's out there, all of those track guides, and they're guides, they're curved pieces like this that are on the outside of each track, and the tire ends in between them. It keeps the track on the tires. Now those track guides, all the water builds up on them, and snow hits them and builds up. And as they come around the front of it now, they're spaced out this far apart across the bottom, and as they come, they start banging into each other. And I'm going down the trail.
Clackety, clackety, clack,
yeah,
clack,
and it's like, what on earth is that noise? What's that vibration? And I get out and I realize what it is. Well, these things have built up so much, and the ice is banging together. It's like, so okay, I know what it is, and I make sure that some of them were just huge, but I make sure that I knock it a little bit off. But you got to be careful because they're plastic. You don't want to break one.
Yeah.
And I keep going down the line. Well, a few more times down through these soft muskegs and that, and all of a sudden, bang! It's like, what on earth was that? I mean, not only heard it, I felt it, right?
And you're a long ways from the cabin.
And I'm a long ways from the cabin. Then all of a sudden, it's like, bang, bang! And it's like, there's one on each side. And I realized instantly what it was.
Yeah.
The tracks are put together using metal hinges. Okay, yeah. metal hinges that swivel. Well, those metal hinges now, of course, in the cold, they're collecting the water and the snow, and they build up. So
the cold.
Yeah, and the cold. The cold is a big factor, right?
Of course it will be. Yeah.
As it comes around and it comes up the back. Well, then here is that metal catwalk that we've got, and this is second or third machine we've had. Third machine that's had the catwalk.
It's really awesome, that metal catwalk.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it, man. In 42 years of using Argos, this is the first time I've ever had this ever happen.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty unique situation. Anyway, as that would come up, there wouldn't be enough clearance for the ice that was built up on that track extension, and it would bang, it would hit the underside of the catwalk. So I'm out there. I don't know how many times during a day I'm out there with my hammer, and I'm busting off the ice and moving the machine so I can get to what's sticking up. It's like a episode of The Deadliest Catch, but with much poorer seafood. Matter of fact, the only seafood we had was spam, and that's because it was the only food I could see.
of the risk of drowning,
So anyway, sitting here on the 12th, I'm behind.
Yeah,
I'm behind. Usually, I've got a lot of these dams and areas that I can cross really quickly by this time of the year. There is a chunk in the middle, and it's usually where I target a lot of the links, but I got to cross lakes there, and they take a lot longer to firm up, and I usually don't get into that until mid-December. But now here we are mid-November, and I haven't got all of my...
No, we've got 75 boxes out now, because we set, I think it was 17 boxes on Saturday.
Yep.
And then we
in
get
the southwest corner?
In what we like to call the southwest corner, because it is the southwest corner. So this has been a running joke all weekend about what we call it. And then we move to what we like to call the southeast corner, which is the southeast corner. And it goes on and on.
We are
These
so
are the
original.
kind of very small-minded things that go on out a day of setting traps.
But a couple of things that have happened that you just don't even think about, right? Like I brought out 2 totes of bait.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually, no, those totes probably weigh 40 or 50 pounds. Like they're a good grunt. You know, like
Yeah.
the one has over 100 muskrats in it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I hear they're starting to.
Well,
they're starting to sweeten up a little.
out here, you know, you got to keep them thawed, right? So I've brought out 2 totes because normally I would go through those 2 totes worth of bait within the first couple of days. Not a big deal. So I've been keeping heat going on in the skinning shed and keeping my bait in there to keep it thawed, right? And I put my lure in to keep it fresh every day.
That's a good reason why I don't go in the skinning shed.
So
Not right now, anyway.
I've just barely used 1 tote. Mm-hmm. About 50 pounds of beaver meat. I've just barely used. So this morning I was out there. It's like I was out skinning a couple marten is what I was doing, and I was like, "What on earth is that?" And I looked down, and ooh, there's some stuff dripping out around the side of this one tote. And I peeled it up. It's like, holy, like instant mouth sweats.
He came in, he was wearing gloves the whole 9 yards. He said, I need to wash because even though I was wearing gloves, I need some water.
So what happened was it was the muskrats, and now they've been kept warm above freezing for 10 days.
Oh, yummy.
So, and here's the worst part is that all I did was just chop them in half, like right behind the rib cage. I chop them in half, and so a half rat goes in one box, half rat goes in the other. Chop the tail off because the tail's a hard thing to work. It tries to stick out. And it's funny. You don't think about the reality of these things till you stuff them in a box, right? Got to get rid of that tail.
Got to get rid of that tail.
So that's what I do is I bang in the middle and then bang off goes the tail and throw them in there. And never before have I ever worried about the guts. Well, when I lifted that up, lots of those guts and that were blown up like balloons in there.
Oh, I'm so happy I've just had breakfast.
So I had to take it outside and I had to drain off some of the fluid. And of course the dogs are out there and they're all really interested in that. It's like, no, don't get back. So what I did was I separated out a bunch of them into the tote that's mostly empty. I pulled the guts out. I left the lungs and livers and all that kind of stuff in the front end because that's great bait. But I pulled the guts out. And I went over to a couple of beaver dams here and set some mink boxes.
That's good use for it. I'll bet that's good. They'll be well fed.
Those 160 boxes are about that full of mink guts each one.
Yuck.
Well, I just want to use them for something, right?
But anyway, we were out and we set a few more boxes yesterday. So of course, long weekend. So we're tidying up around the cabin and doing a few last minute things just right close by here. And then Saturday we're out, we did a shorter loop and we set 17 boxes. And then yesterday we did a longer loop.
We got to check a few boxes.
We got to check a few boxes and set a few more yesterday.
And what did we pick up?
We got 2 marten, beautiful marten. One has 4 white feet.
And not just even feet, they're like socks.
Yeah.
They're like socks. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see it there. I mean, everybody just loves it.
Trapping Inc. TV is the Facebook page.
On the Facebook page. And he's got 4. And not only that, but people want to buy him for taxidermy, but his nose, like one little corner of his nose got chewed on.
Well, what happened was the box... And we've had to replace a few this year because they've been, as you said, Picasso'd, where the squirrels have eaten creative patches out of the boxes and whatnot. So what happened with this particular box is the way that the squirrels had eaten the plywood on the box, the trap, when it was tripped, didn't fall away and fall out of the box. So
it kind of wedged sideways in there.
It did. And so some little rodent, a mouse or vole or something, came along and chewed on the end of his nose.
Yeah.
But so that's really too bad.
Mind you, though, he's going to go triple XL. He is a huge marten, so he's going to be big bucks. I wouldn't get any more for selling them for taxidermy than I'm going to get at auction. But
true, but there's certainly been a lot of interest in it. And we get several. We've just never really thought, I mean, they are unusual because not every marten has socks or feet that are white.
Last year down in the Southwest, I caught 2 that had 4 white boots on it. One check and then the next check.
Yeah.
Like 2 of them, and and that was in the same box.
Yeah.
In the same box. And then some folks were asking me, well, is this from where you got those ones last year? Well, I says, no, by the crow fly, this is 14 miles.
14 miles, yeah. So really interesting. It's certainly genetic, but interesting that it was 14 miles difference, and what, how many marten are in that
You know what's really cool, though? I mean, it brought up another thing. They asked, well, did it travel? You have to understand what the home range is of a marten and that. More its age. Do you know how old the average age of a marten is?
They're like 3 or 4 years old.
Three,
Yeah.
yeah. They if they get to 4 or 5, that they're geriatric. They're extremely old. And I just find that fascinating. So when so many people talk about, well, trapline ain't been trapped in 20 years, it's just full of marten. Hey, no, it ain't. Maybe they're grandkids, but it ain't.
Yeah,
ain't
grandkids or great grandkids.
Yeah, that generation is pretty cool.
Wow, and that's again another topic that we've talked about quite a bit in terms of what we trap is the excess or the surplus. Because everything out here is food for something else.
Yep.
So, I mean, even just when oil companies or logging companies spray to control weeds and whatnot, that still destroys some habitat that contains bugs or amphibians or whatever that mice or voles or something else eats that is eaten by a marten or a weasel or whatever, and then is eaten by. So what we're catching is the surplus.
Absolutely. Big surplus this year.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, big, all the marten have been a really good size.
Yeah.
It's nice to see they're prime. Like,
yes.
I've pulled the fleece off of them, off all 3 of them now, and they're in great shape. I just can't believe that we've only got 75 boxes out. We have about 400 boxes scattered. Yeah, and we don't set them up all the time. We probably set up about half of them at a time. The other thing, right now our Wolverine is also open, but I haven't set anything for them because the pens that I use for my Wolverine, I catch way more lynx in.
Yeah.
And
the lynx season does not start until lynx and otter are December 1st in our area.
Yeah.
And those are both quota animals for us, quote unquote quota. Not every jurisdiction has quota, I guess.
Right.
For us, it's dependent on the area that we have. So we have a quota of 22 lynx and 18 otter.
Yeah. No, 12 otter. 15 fish.
It's 18 fisher.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. 12 otter, 18 fisher,
First
22
year ever,
lynx.
we caught a marten before a fisher.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And one of those marten was so big, I thought it was a little fisher at first. But whatever. A couple marten, it's all good.
That's what the forecasters right now, the large marten are going to be worth bucks this year again.
Well, then we're catching them right at the right time.
Yeah. We want the males. We don't want the females. But with my Wolverine, I mean, I could set them up and I could run my links through as incidental catches because that's not what I'm targeting. I'm targeting the Wolverine, but they're not prime yet. They're not prime till after the 1st of December, and so there's no sense catching them. Why take a $140 lynx and selling it for $100 less if it's not prime, right? You got a problem?
I'm just checking because I don't know whether I'm hearing you or I'm not.
Yeah, you should be.
Okay.
You should be hearing me.
I heard something go click, and then I wasn't sure whether I could just hear you or hear you through the headphones. So, yeah. Always want to check because, we've done this dance before.
Made a mistake?
What? Made a mistake? Yeah. So anyway.
Anyway, it's been going good. We're going to go home for a few days. I guess you're not coming back on the next one.
Yeah, I have to leave for work tomorrow, and I'm back the following day. But then I volunteered for grandma duty on Saturday.
Yeah,
our youngest son and his wife are going Christmas partying, and so I'm looking after grandchildren, which is always kind of nice to have them close.
Well, I'm going to be coming back out for 4 days or so now. I can where I went over and set those mink this morning. Now I can cross those beaver dams. And,
that opens up a whole nother section of country.
Huge area. So I can really start getting things filled in. In a week's time, things are going to be tied down pretty good, and then it'll be just serious checking. It's always easier when you're just checking because you can. We've ran out of bait screens. We've ran out of boxes. Like I've never had so many boxes. You laughed about my term about them being Picassoed, but you ever looked at a Picasso painting?
Yeah.
You look at it and you kind of think what it's supposed to be. That's kind of what these look like.
They kind of look like they were boxes once, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I build them out of pressure treated plywood, and when they're fresh, nothing touches them for about 2 years. But I guess the sun and the weather and that leaches those pressure treated chemicals out or whatever, and then after that they start to chew on them. But
yeah, we've heard that they're attracted to the glue in plywood. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I don't know. Sometimes they go up the side of it, and then they eat a big hole in the side. Or it's funny.
It's very funny.
It's funny how it goes. Yeah. So we've got a new.
Yeah, that's what that says is new, not NFW. I thought that was something. Yeah, new. Yeah, we're kicking around a new idea.
We get so much requests for more content, especially on YouTube, where this is going. And one of the things is, of course, our YouTube site. Everything all just started as someplace to put our library of.
Someplace for easy access for people who.
Just our library of episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it's a business, and sure, we're trying to make money. You have to cover expenses, that kind of stuff, to be able to keep doing it. But in the beginning, I mean, we just put it out there because we're trying to spread the word about trapping, and that we are honorable people. We are normal people. We fill a very needed role, and so. That was when we put it up on YouTube, and things have come a long ways because at the time that we first started putting up YouTube, YouTube wasn't even sure that they were going to allow it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Now we're on Amazon Prime, and we have been since May.
Yep.
Yeah, May on Amazon Prime, and we've been on YouTube longer. But the podcast is a fairly recent addition to our YouTube repertoire.
Yeah.
And now we're thinking about doing something called a journal.
Yeah.
Where maybe we post edited content a little bit more often, and it will likely be information and video clips and so on that don't necessarily make it to a show.
It's going to be. It's kind of be like the podcast, but it's going to be action because it's going to be like us. The backstory, the stuff that you don't have time to put on a half-hour TV program. That half-hour TV program has to be edited to the frame.
Yeah.
Okay, and there are 30 frames to the second, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff that hits the floor, a whole bunch of back stuff that never gets talked about, and that's what this is going to be. This is going to be just us going down the road and having fun, and like yesterday. Stopped and a lynx had been in one of my cubbies. And now this is how incredible these animals are, folks. The things that you think you're fooling an animal, ha! If you watched the show, you've seen how I set up my lure, my bait on a stick, right, for lynx, and they come in and they want to rub their face on it, and that they're so enthusiastic about that smell. Well, the last time that anything was on this particular stick was middle of January. Last year. 2018.
Or sorry, still this year.
Still this
10
year.
months ago.
10 months ago. And now in the snow that came here on November 3rd or 4th, you could see where the lynx walked in, and he came from downwind, which is really cool.
Yeah.
He came from downwind, walked right into the pen. He walked into the back of the pen, which was so cool, and that's why I knew it was downwind. And he walked in there, and he grabbed that stick, and he walked out, and he played with it on our 2-track. Then after that, along comes
a pack of wolves,
and they chew on the stick and they roll on it.
Yeah, and you could see the wolf hair in the snow and where they packed it down. It was really wow. Stuff like that is so incredible. And then we came upon spruce grouse. With a little harem of hens. Spruce grouse, I guess they're called roosters, right? Are they?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
I don't even know. Anyway, and a harem of 5 hens, and
we actually call them We've
called them fool hens.
Fool hens is what we always call spruce grass because they're not really bright. But he's just being a typical man. No, they don't breed this time of year, but hope springs eternal, right, guys?
Pay no attention to him.
But you see it happen. It's got to do with the amount of daylight. So there, we're crossing that boundary where the amount of daylight that they have in the spring that incites them to start their mating in that. And we're crossing that same boundary, that same amount of daylight this time of the year. And so he gets out there and he drums, and he had a area where he had been kicked up some sand in that, so that how they bath in the sand and dust themselves in the sand. Well, this had a little bit of snow in it, but he was all spruced up, and their eyebrows suffused with blood, so they become just brilliant red.
And that's what we saw when he flew off of his little stomping ground there. He just flew off, and you could just see that brilliant red on his face.
Yeah, so it's all things like that that's going to be on the journal. I think we're going to call it The Grind.
Yeah.
Just because it shows everything that goes on behind. Yeah. Everybody always wants more content out there. And
well, a lot of people do want to see what really goes on, and sometimes it's very difficult to show that in a small, really, television is a small clip. And we've had people say, do an hour, do whatever, and sometimes you just can't.
Well, unfortunately, when you're doing on TV, it costs me money.
Yeah.
I have to purchase my time to be on TV.
That's the other thing that a lot of folks don't understand about how this particular type of TV works. It's not that you do a pilot and someone gets all excited about it and picks you up, quote unquote.
No.
No. In this realm, you do pay for the airtime that you are on, and then for each set of minutes of commercial time that you purchase. So there's 6 minutes of commercials.
Yep.
And then there's another minute that the channel has out of your time for public announcements and something else, promotions or something like that, right?
Usually public announcements, their own channel announcements and PSAs, that kind of stuff. But so it ends up that we edit to they take a minute and a half. So we edit to 28:30, and that has 3.
Not 28:30.
Yes. Including
our commercials.
If you would let me finish.
Sorry. Okay.
And there are 3 2-minute commercial blocks in there for another 6 minutes. Yeah. So your actual content now is down to 22:30.
Yeah.
So it becomes tough. Things like showing this Lynx stuff yesterday, and then the Wolves' reaction to it and all that would have took a whole 5-minute block between commercials, and there would have been nothing else. I've never wanted to take the chance that folks would be interested enough in that. Whereas if we put it up on YouTube,
well, you can gauge people's interest by the number of minutes that they engage on YouTube. So it's good. But anyway, more on that to follow. But it's just another one of those ideas that gets kicked around when we're bumping around in the Argo out there. And trying to think of something else to talk about other than the rotten bait on the front of the Argo.
So far, the lure, of course, when you've caught 3 marten, it's not a big cross section, but and one lure has to be doing better than the other, right? And the one that's doing the best is made with gator oil.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would remember if you listened to the podcast before, but we were at the National Trapping Convention in Escanaba, Michigan this past summer in July, and we got a container of gator oil, and that's been really interesting.
It has.
It's not like there's many gators up here.
No, it's just a paste. It's a vehicle. Yeah. It's kind of like if you don't have a cracker for your peanut butter and jam, you put it on your hand.
I just put it on my hand and lick it off. Yeah, I've been accused of that. It's never actually happened.
So that's what this gator oil is. But the neat thing about it, like a lot of lures in the north are made with Vaseline. because it stays semi-liquid or a paste. But the problem with it is that because it is a petroleum base, it does seal off.
Yeah.
So it may not smell like anything, and then you bump it, like rub it on your toque or something. Then
that was a tip from yesterday.
Then you smell it again, right? Because you've broke that seal. It happens. Well, this gator oil is different. Like the smell continues. It doesn't seal off. So it may be a good deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll watch it as time goes on.
Yeah, because we have one that's petroleum based or Vaseline based, and then the other that is the gator oil in it. So it's good.
It's been excellent. Well,
I know it's hard to say goodbye. I've made the bed. I've got all of our dirty clothes packed away. I just have to empty the fridge. The dishes are done.
Yeah, I've puttered around outside as much as I can. So
and so it's new.
Marten.
We'll probably grab a bite before we leave and head out. It's a 3-hour drive home from here, and then we get to, Richard gets to come back next weekend. I don't get to come back, but
I'll probably come back Thursday, something like that. Yeah. So 2-3 days time. Yeah.
It's good.
Lots of work yet to do.
Well, there's always work. So anyway, it's been great having you here. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, and you can find everything, including announcements about the new journal and that kind of stuff, at www.trappinginc.com. Thank you. Hi, I'm Rich.
And I'm Sandi from Trapping Inc. TV.
We thought we'd do a really quick video today just to show you how to access all of our digital projects.
So click on the button below and that takes you to our website where you can access Amazon Prime, podcasts, YouTube, and all of our other social media pages.
Trappinginc.com.